because there's a lot of background. And there goes Marilyn. So there's a lot of background noise and it just makes it a little bit nicer. So I'm hosting this evening. I'm playing Marilyn. So a couple things I need to go over. Actually, I've got a whole list here, but I won't waste that much time. Don't forget the library is closed on Monday, the 20th for MLK Day. On Tuesday, on the 21st at 1:30, Linda Levin will be doing the big read for the county, which is To Live. We have some new programs that have come up. Mindful meditation on Monday, the 27th from 4 to 5. Pull up a chair with Fern, yoga, Ageless Grace, New Yorker. Those are all continuing. And we have two things that I need to make sure that I tell you guys about and that you do. On the 26th, we have a special event for the Stirling Circle members. If you have not registered for that, please do so. That is a thank you for those of you or us, or however you want to say it, who have given more than your fair share, and thank you very much. The minimum donation to be a friend is $10 a year, but anything above that is wonderful, and we so appreciate our Stirling Circle members. They're the people who make it possible to have so many programs. And on February 2nd, Sunday, February 2nd, we're also going to do for every friend, not just the Stirling Circle people, we're going to do a special event at the library with Bachia Cohen. She's going to be discussing art. So we're trying to get a little bit more back into the library, and yet we're still maintaining our Zoom presence. So Shelley, I'm excited to host this one because this is the first one that every single person I have talked to has absolutely loved. I have not heard even one single thing that was negative. Everybody loved it. And we're all over here giving you a big round of applause. So when Marilyn said, will you host? I went, yes, I want this one because everybody loved it. So take it away, Shelley, and dazzle us.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year to everyone. It's been a while since I've seen you. It's good to be back in my little theater. Anyway, I wanted to start off the year particularly with this film because it is special. It is special, but it's even more special with some of the things I'll be telling you about these two actors who star in the film. But Driving Madeleine is from 2022. It is a very recent film and actually didn't get released in the US until last year. The director's name is Christian Carillon, and he is a French film director, screenwriter, and he gained international attention for his film in 2004 entitled Joyeux Noël, a film which we did here. And that film was, as I said, was nominated for the Academy Award. And I will tell you, it also starred one of the people in this film. Anyway, the setup is simple. Charles is a taxi driver having a very bad day. He is loath to take on another fare, but when Madeleine, who has to cross Paris on her way to assisted living, enters his cab, everything will change for him and for us, fortunately. The film works on several levels. It is all at once a platonic love story, a beautiful and not typically tourist ride through a wonderful city, Paris, and a very revealing, very relevant and resonant story of how we affect change through getting to understand each other's experience in life. While French cinema often explores the complexities of human relationships, Driving Madeleine is certainly no exception, delving into the unexpected connection between two individuals from two very different generations. The film also prioritizes character development over plot, focusing on the personal journeys of Charles and Madeleine, allowing their stories to unfold organically, and it achieves it through capturing simple and profound moments of human connection that can occur in the most ordinary circumstances. Here, a cab ride. And the film is also what we typically call a two-hander, meaning that it's essentially focused on just two characters. Even though others come in and out, it is two characters that dominate the screen. Especially in this case, Madeleine, like the film, it's Madeleine, like the film itself, is a beautiful rose with a few prickly thorns. She has lived a full, fractured, painful life, and yet she carries the weight of her 92 years with such grace. And we come to understand why. While the film takes us visually into her past, it doesn't dwell too long on its darker themes, but doesn't shy away from them either. And where the issue of abuse is concerned, although some things have changed since the 1950s and 60s, abuse of women is still very much an issue in France, as it is here and in other prominent countries. Charles, while he feels like everything is falling apart and at first resisting any conversation, his face is an open book. And despite whatever seems to be troubling him, he can't help but be drawn in by Madeleine's openness. Most importantly, though, the interchanges are sweet without getting, what can I say, too schmaltzy. And the dialogue sounds natural, with just the right amount of wit and gentle comic relief. From her initial hello, Madeline lives up to her Proustian name, holding us enthralled with her sense of humor and, above all, her memorable journey through life, reliving them from their stops along the way, some holding painful memories, and other moments with an hilarious visit, for instance, to a bathroom or getting Charles out of a traffic ticket. And Charles comes to realize the value of their time together, learning that his troubles are not insurmountable. While the destination of the film might feel expected, the graceful and sometimes unpredictable way in which director Christian Carillon takes us down that road is impressive. We feel the connection between these two unlikely new friends, and by extension, also feel connected to them and their stories. And this care bride left us, and especially Charles, with a great tip, reminding us to be kind, to listen, and most importantly, to be resilient. Danny, both leads, by the way, are prospective legends in France. Boone, Danny Boone, primarily as a comedian, they make it an impeccable duo. Their back and forth is more than worth the price of admission, and Line Renault as Madeleine especially stands out. I have to tell you about Line Renault. She's a very, very special person. She is a national icon. Her career began as a young girl with a gifted singing voice, and from the age of 16 in the early 40s on, she was a headliner, appearing at the most famous clubs and concert halls in the world. She toured the States many times and was a favorite on The Bob Hope Show. Johnny Carson, Perry Como, Ed Sullivan, and Merv Griffin. From 1946 on, she's appeared in over 80 films and had her own TV show in France, and appeared on stage in legitimate theater as well. She's also a well-known national figure for being a major and outspoken AIDS activist, donating her time and talents for raising consciousness about the disease since the 1980s. When she made the film, she was already 93 years old and not 92, as she said in the film. And today at 95, she demonstrates she's still got it, working with Danny Boone for the third time. And she will be working, she is still working in other films. I mean, she's an amazing presence, and she was an absolutely stunning young woman. And the man she was married to was her agent, actually. He discovered her singing one night in a small hall, and he decided to take her on. And she was 16 at the time. And he was very chaste with her. And she realized she fell in love with him, but she told him, "We'll wait till I'm 21 and then we can get married." And he was approximately 20 years older than her, so he waited patiently, and the two did get married, and they had a very successful marriage up until the day he passed away. Danny Boone has become one of France's favorite comedic actors, Beginning in stand-up, he went on to starring in and directing the highest-grossing film in French cinema. Welcome to the Sticks was the name of the film, where he also starred with Line Renaud as his mother. Line Renaud played his mother in the film, considered to be, and he is considered to be the French, they compare him to the French Adam Sandler. He has a string of comedic hits, and here wanted to stretch his abilities with a deeper and more personal role. And he succeeds brilliantly. His only other dramatic role, in fact, was in 2004 in the Oscar-nominated film Joyeux Noël. It earned him a French Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. So also a film directed by Carry-On. The cinematography of the film takes us on a wonderful tour of present-day Paris, contrasted by a grainier and more technicolor palette in the flashbacks, each featuring details of the periods in Madeleine's life. It is interesting to note that most of their cab ride was shot in a studio. At 94, it was at 93, it wasn't easy for Line Renaud to walk around. So they made it easy for her, except in 2 or 3 of the outdoor sequences where you see her on a park bench, or they're running into the restaurant, or they're going out to eat at they're coming from the restaurant, and when he picks her up. They shot most of the driving sequences before doing the film. They went around for hours around Paris shooting away. And with new technology, they have these rooms now, these studios that are totally surrounded, screens that totally surround the room. And they can immerse the actors, much like they do with green screen, in the situation. And here, they were able to recreate the ride brilliantly. I mean, you don't feel as if this is in a studio at all. The music score. Now, the music score to this film is outstanding. The music itself is by Philippe Rombi, who also scored Joyeux Noël and scored a lot of other award-winning films in France. But the opening score and much of the soundtrack music has almost a Henry Mancini lilt. If you listen to it, if you watch the film, if you would watch the film again and listen to the score, some of it sounds like Moon River, and it sounds also like Dear Heart. Which were Mancini's compositions, but they're riffs on it, and it really fits in with the film. But really, who stars in the music of the film are Etta James and Dinah Washington. Etta James sings At Last 2 times in the film, and I hope you all stayed for the end titles, because and if you didn't, you can go back and watch them, because she does a reprieve of At Last, and it's Madeleine dancing with her soldier, with Matthew, dancing with the soldier, and we finally get to see him. So if you have a chance, you can go back and look at that. And the other song, which is called This Bitter Earth, is an absolutely beautiful rendition by Dinah Washington. I find that when they use singers like this in the film, it just makes you melt. The score was brilliant. In just 91 minutes, just think about this, just 91 minutes, we learn much about both of these people who on this one day have significantly changed each other's lives in ways they never expected. And Driving Madeleine proves a captivating, wise, and I believe genuinely heartfelt journey, having been well worth taking. And from what I understand from Jackie, you all felt the same way. So I'd love to get your feelings about it. If you want to recall a scene that you especially liked. I mean, her delivery was perfect in this film. So, okay, I'll begin it, Linda.
I just loved it. It's just a happy, feel-good type of movie. It reminded me, though, of Driving Miss Daisy, which I loved also. And in fact, I've used that occasionally myself. But the characters, the acting, the music, it was wonderful. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Rachel.
I also loved this movie. And I just loved how it was like peeling an onion. You could see his annoyance, like, please don't talk to me. I don't want to have a conversation. You could tell the cab driver was feeling that. And then he started, and it was so realistic. It was like you could see him being annoyed with mannerisms, not only in conversation, but just how he was. And it was just like peeling an onion. They start layer by layer knowing each other. And I was like in crying, like when the door closed and, like he didn't want it to end, this cab ride, and she didn't want it to end. And it was just so, so beautiful. And it was heart-wrenching when he found out that she died. I felt for his character. It was the best movie I've seen through you, Shelley. I loved this movie.
Well, that's terrific. And to throw that in, we didn't want it to end either. I mean, it was just you could sit there all night and listen to these two. It was just fabulous. Jackie and Larry.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We both thoroughly enjoyed it too, and agree 100% with Rachel. It was a feel-good movie, and yet it wasn't. It had a lot of dark moments and a lot of things that are horrendous and difficult in our society. And yet, as some of the other movies have been, we didn't feel like we were being beaten over the head with moral indignation. We felt like she moved on. She did what she needed to do. She lived her life. I mean, look at the things she went through. Not only was he abusive, but she lost her son. She was older. And I got to be honest with you, I kept looking at her going, oh my God, I wish I looked like that at this age, let alone at 90 something. So it was definitely, it was one of those kind of movies that makes you realize that we don't have to be wallowing in the gutters to get the point. It was, she made it, she moved on, and I absolutely loved at the end, when the wife found out that she was definitely an icon in the feminist movement. I just thought that was wonderful. It just said so much about how she lived her life. And I agree with Rachel and Linda. It was a great movie, and we really appreciated the pick.
Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, and getting back to the film is there are certain moments that also when in the present time that really hit a note. The first place they stopped, if you remember, she went back to the I guess the building she lived in as a child, and there was a plaque dedicated to her father and two other people that had died in a concentration camp, that were murdered by the French. And it was a remembrance that, really hits you when you see it. And you could see it on his face too, this sort of sign of resignation that, he feels it, what she was, when he realizes why she wanted to stop. We had that. And then the abuse itself, we learn and let me tell you something, she didn't do enough to this guy. But anyway, it was really ironic justice that she takes his torch and torches him. But the fact is, you could see how this trial was set up, and probably that's the way it really was. I mean, women had absolutely no standing in the society back then. And they had to have their husband's permission, as she said, to open a bank account, to get a job. And they just, what they did to her. And, she serves her time, she gets out, and then she gets hit with her son dying 6 months later. How she stands up to it all. But we get these events in history as well. And the fact that France was a part of all of this is interesting. So I thought that he really covered a lot of ground historically and in the present. So it really worked very, very well. Karen.
Oh my God.
Well, I liked it very much as well. I wanted to say one of the scenes that I really liked, and it was actually more than one scene, is when when they started having fun together, the cab driver and Madeleine started having fun together, like going out to eat, getting ice cream, all those things. And all the most of her interactions with men had not been very good, except for the first one with her American soldier. But this one, she was having a fun time, and maybe for the first time in her life with a man, not sexual, but just fun in general.
Yeah, which is what it proves. Absolutely. It was, as she said to him, "You're old enough to be my son." It's he was half her age. He was half her, actually probably her grandson. But anyway, it was also interesting, later on when they do go out to dinner, and there's this, when he calls up the home and says, she'll be there in an hour. I mean, they were, and he cuts off the person and they go. The two of them were just so natural together. You felt like they did know each other for a long time, in terms of the way they work. But the lines, and I can imagine in France, they probably rang even more true. In French, they probably even rang more true. There must have been, I'd love to know if the translation was as good as what they were saying, Anybody out there speak French and listen to the French?
Je ne parle pas français. Je parle français un peu, monsieur.
Okay, and
And I'd like to speak, but I can't see my picture in here. I feel like I'm isolated.
it's all right.
And
We'll
I keep
pretend your
raising-
mahjong card is talking.
I keep raising the hand to no avail.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Arlette.
May I speak now?
You've
Shelley,
been
do you see
speaking.
my hand?
Please go on.
Shelley, do you see my hand go up when I put that yellow hand up?
No.
You see, we're having a real problem. I'm detached from all of you. Okay, let me just say that when they're in the car and she's sharing with him how she just put her husband on fire to get even with him, I saw the facial expression and was wondering whether he was running. Oh my God, who do I have in this car with me? That reaction, I thought that was fabulous. And I never cried so much at the end of a movie as I did in this movie. I was so taken and so upset that they couldn't meet again at the end. It was phenomenal, just phenomenal. And the way he had to persuade his wife to come see her with him was a wonderful, wonderful scene. How he just pushed the whole envelope to come with him. And also I'd like to change in his personality as she discussed all the beautiful and horrible situations that she had endured. And it made a wonderful impact on him when he spoke to his wife at the end of the movie. I was really taken by that.
Yeah, and there's a wonderful contrast between the two characters also, because he, as a father, what he represented to her was nothing like the man she was with. And he loves his daughter. He loves she's not his wife, as he said, that she was basically his significant other, but she saw that in him, that he cared about his daughter, he cared about his wife, he cared about his family. And that was an important contrast to what she had gone through. And he became, in a sense, a surrogate for her son in that time, in that moment. So and leaving him the money, it's something we could say, oh, come on, I expected that or whatever. But even though you expect it, you feel good about it. You're not going to walk away going, oh, they could have ended it a different way. But it's not important. It's sort of just caps off. He earned his tip, so to speak. So I thought that was interesting. Marilyn.
I too just love the movie. I really, really did. I just found that in addition to, I agree with what everybody else said. In addition, I really felt that each of them started out quite lonely in their own life. And yet because of maybe that was a motivation to for them to be open, but the connections that they made and the relationship that they formed was just beautiful. I think that whoever wrote the script, the movie or the screenplay, did a fabulous job doing the character development. I just thought it was very beautiful. I thought it was also quite French in how it was done. I think that, I don't know if it was a European or the cultural way that they dealt with this. I just thought it was very beautiful from beginning to end. And like Linda said at the beginning, she talked about Driving Miss Daisy. So I deliberately went and re-saw Driving Miss Daisy to see the differences. And each one is very true to their culture. The Driving Miss Daisy is a very American, dealing with all the Americans and issues. And I found Driving Madeleine was very French and dealing with how the French mentality would have dealt it. Each movie was really excellent, but so very different. But even in Driving Miss Daisy, the relationship that developed between Jessica Tandy and Morgan Freeman also came out of somewhat of a loneliness. They developed the same beautiful relationship. It was very different, but it itself, they were both really fabulous. So they were both two good movies. I personally like the sentimentality and the sentiment of the French one, but that's just the way I think. But it was a fabulous choice. Thank you.
Yeah, and that you're quite welcome. And I I could see this also could have been done as a play as well.
Oh yeah.
You could see this performed on the stage with these two characters, and with the ancillary moments. But it's interesting because this kind of two-hander, the road is a perfect vehicle. It is a perfect vehicle of a film. You have that also. The last one that did that also was recognized with Academy Awards, was the Green Book. Was
yeah.
also, it was two men.
Fabulous.
But it's the same thing, building a relationship on the road, being isolated, putting them in a specific place where they're isolated and forced to deal with each other.
Sometimes it's easier to do it with strangers, though, to have that openness than
absolutely
to somebody who like you never have to see them again, so you don't have to have the fear that you've told them too much.
right.
And so that makes it really special as well.
That's an
I
interesting
love the
point.
actress. I was very impressed with the actress. I was not familiar with her, and I thought she was awesome. What a
Yeah, well, she also had a beautiful voice.
lady.
She
Just
also was a
beautiful.
wonderful singer.
She's
And
beautiful. She's just a beautiful woman. And it's interesting that she met her, she was 16. Your story about her and her husband is Celine Dion and her husband too.
yes,
It was
yes,
very
similar.
similar story, and both of them had very happy marriages.
Yes, yes. In fact, he was about to. When I had shown the film at one venue, a gentleman came up to me, and he was much older, and he said he was a lawyer, and he was involved. Her husband, back in the 60s, tried to buy a club in Las Vegas for her. And she was going to have her own club in Las Vegas, the way some of these stars do, and it fell through. So she never got to headline which she did perform in Vegas, but she never got to headline in Vegas the way he would have liked. So it was very interesting that we might have known who she was, at least some of us. But I wish I could have seen her performances on some of those shows, on Carson or Sullivan. She was a favorite of Perry Como. I mean, it's very interesting that we learn about this in this kind of way. I think it's terrific. Susan Pauls.
Hello,
Hi.
you can hear me now.
Yes.
I was just going to say something about the being in the car, the enclosed environment. where there's nothing to do except talk.
Hmm.
Or not talk. I guess he certainly didn't want to at the beginning.
Right.
Also, the difference in the feel of the present and the flashbacks. I don't know if they used a different kind of camera stock or a different
Yeah.
kind of lighting or speed, but they felt totally different. The flashbacks were almost dreamlike in the actual feel of the film, not just in the subject.
Yes.
And the two women that played her, the two actors, the singers, were also phenomenal and beautiful. And so much of their acting was just close-ups of their faces as the world fell down around them, around each woman.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Beautiful, beautifully done.
Oh, thank you. Yes, and by the way, yes, it's not it. I don't know if the film was if it was even shot on film, but they did develop he did really demarcate these periods. If you noticed, the 40s and 50s were very expressionist. There wasn't much around them. It was really, you almost didn't see walls. You just,
Yeah.
and in the apartment it was also darker, and much richer, much denser in the color, in almost grainy, giving it a 40s look. And then back in the 60s, when she gets out of prison and she goes, it's a little brighter. It has that little pop to it of the 60s. So he really worked hard on separating these periods, which I love, from that point, and it's done so well. But I was really taken in by the whole production. I mean, he does an excellent production. I've seen several of his films, and they're all very good. And he works in very different genres. Christian Carry On. And by the way, he did write the script for this film. He mainly did the dialogue, which is interesting. He worked with another writer who did the scenario, but he did the dialogue.
Well, I agree with you on the small point of the very ending. It was a little cliche,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
tried to think about how I would end it otherwise. And I couldn't think of anything I would have been happy with.
Yeah, it's you want, for a film like this, you want to walk away feeling good after all you've seen. And I think that was the kappa. By the way, the attorney who delivers the letter at the end of the film, that's the director. That's the director. He did a Hitchcock. He walked into the film, but that was Christian Carry On. Uh, and if I tell you, how does someone come up with a film like this? Christian Carry On comes from the north of France. He was born on a farm, and it was, interestingly enough, when he did Joyeux Noel, he had done one film before it called The Girl from Paris, which takes place in the mountains. But he was born on a farm where you would find remnants of World War I. You would find old bomb casings and shells, and he used to collect them. And he had written the script for Joyeux Noel, which won so many awards and was so well produced and was really an epic film about World War I. And for those of you who saw it with me, the soldiers who came out of the trenches in 1914 and, sort of put an armistice on the war for 2 days. But the fact was that was a film that he wanted to make. And he had to do a smaller one before, proved himself, did that film, and he has since become one of France's major directors. So it's a good story there too. Jackie?
Well, I was just gonna say, once you said what else he had done, we love that movie, Joyous Noel.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, his movies seem to be totally character driven instead of any kind of plot or location driven. I mean, the locations are nice and it's important, but they're just an ancillary. It's all about the character and the character developments. And I think that's great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's why he's a master at his craft of dialogue, and he shows it. But yes, all his films. He did a film about spies, based on a true story about a French spy and a Russian spy, and who sort of exchange information. But even in that, it was about character more than there was no real spycraft of killing people and doing things like that. It was much more about character over plot. And that's the way he does his films. So, and he really loves putting in great music, which he does in all his films, which I really enjoy. He manages to get in Joyeux Noel, if you remember, he does opera, and he does a great rendition of Ave Maria in the film. He has Nathalie Dessailes, great opera singer, doing Ave Maria in that film. So there's a lot of film history here, not just in the performers, but in the director as well. So that's why you get such a good production that you can walk away from feeling like you've seen a good movie, and feel good about it. So anybody else have anything they want to add? I know this was a shorter session because there's not much for me to say to take you into the film except go over those little facts and hear how you felt about it, which I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Is there any, and if you have any other questions about film or anything else, that's what I'm here for. So if anybody has any other questions or comments before I tell you what's coming up next month. No takers? Okay. Yes, yeah, I see too.
Since you kind of opened it up and we won't be talking about cooking this time, Marilyn, it's okay. What is I've got some notes going here. What is the spy movie that he directed? Do you remember the name of it off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's just a minute. I can pull it up.
Larry's
Hold on
trying to
one
look it up and
second.
it's easier to ask you.
Yeah. It'll take me a second, not a problem. Okay, here we go. Okay, it's called Farewell, L'Affaire Farewell. Also stars two very good actors. In fact, it stars the one who starred in Joyeux Noel, Guillaume Canet, who right now could be seen in the film on Netflix, as a matter of fact, called Ad Vitam. I don't highly recommend it, but it's on Netflix. Has nothing to do with the director. But he did that film with two directors, Emir Costa Rica, who is a very well-known director in Europe, and Guillaume Canet. It's a spy film that's set both in Russia and France and based on true events. So that you have that film. He did a film entitled My Son in 2021. Come What May is a World War II film about the French evacuating Paris and going across country, Jewish families as well. Very interesting film. So you've got a good group of films there. And I highly recommend The Girl from Paris is a lovely film. And that's about the extent, because he teaches film, he works in other areas. So you've got Come What May, My Son, L'Affaire Farewell, and of course Joyeux Noel if you haven't seen it.
I love when you say that's about it, and it's like I've got a whole sheet of paper with all of this stuff on it. That's pretty impressive, actually.
It
Shelley.
is. He's an impressive director. He's really worth noting and seeing his films. Thank you for asking. Linda, you had something to say?
Yes. Hi. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I had one thing that felt like it was missing, and maybe that was that was done on purpose. But I was wondering, would have been about 10 or 11 when the war began, and during the war. And we only find out, she says in the cab, I was born before the war. And then she tells the story about her and Matt when she was 15. And there was nothing else about it. And maybe there was already too many heavy things happening. But I had the feeling that she was Jewish, and I wanted to hear a little more. And I did see a mezuzah, and when we saw the plaque, I assumed it had something to do with
Yes.
with that, but I couldn't really read it, but yeah, I assumed it had something to do with it. And I just felt like that was missing. And I wonder if it's because the French have a reputation for being anti-Semitic. Do you think it had anything to do with that?
Well, I wouldn't say all the French have a reputation for being anti-Semitic, but in this case, yes, she goes and visits that place, and he realizes, and her name was Kella, which could have been a Jewish name, but yeah, and then her father was executed. So the chances are this was, that's part of the past, but he does that through showing it. In other words, I don't know, I guess the French would look at it a different way and would realize it much quicker than we would. But the first time I saw it, I looked and I said, okay, this explains it. Sometimes let the film, and that's an indication of let the visual do the talking. She doesn't have to tell him because she feels bad enough about it, because you see her sadness when she goes there and just looks at it, and there's a tear in her eye, and they walk away and he looks, and it's like, okay, I get it. So yeah, as a matter of fact, there are many fine films. I think we're going to be doing one. I'm not sure. No, we're not doing one in this, but are we? No. I don't know if we did. There's a film called Other People's Children, which I would highly recommend. It's a beautiful film, and you see that it's not really the mass, especially in Paris. It's not, yes, back in World War II, it was very anti-Semitic. I mean, no question about it. They participated in the roundup and all of these things. So it occurs. But I don't want to say everybody is, because it's a lot of, that France has the third, I think it's the third largest Jewish population in the world. So
It was just a thing that kind of stuck out for me that I was
yeah,
wondering
I can
about, that I didn't
understand
get to
that.
hear more about, but that's fine.
Yeah, I can understand that. Anybody else? Yeah, Linda Pava.
Yeah, I think I saw that plaque. It had something to, in person. I think it had something to do with the Vichy government.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, it's he was executed, and it was Petain's
Right.
General Petain and all of that. So it could be. Anyway, okay, so let me take you away from that. Speaking of which, Linda, you're going to see a film next month that deals with just that subject.
Oh, I didn't
It's
know.
called The Two of Us. By the way, in case none of you realize, that the theme this spring, this right through to May, is dealing with, I call it Then and Now. It's world cinema, then and now, and then and now, however you want to look at it. Well, we're doing a survey from different countries of both contemporary and classic film. So we take a contemporary one and a classic one from the same country, and you can compare and contrast them. In some ways, the themes run close. In other ways, it's just in looking at the storytelling, the filmmaking, and that's what we'll discuss. Anyway, on January 30th, we'll be doing The Two of Us. The Two of Us, a wonderful story. Takes place in World War II, when the Nazis have invaded France. A Jewish family sends their child to a rural setting to live with an elderly Gentile couple. The man in the couple has no idea. Actually, the whole family has no idea of the boy's background and the discovery of being Jewish, because the discovery of being Jewish, and he's told, don't say a word, could destroy their intimate friendship, or help Pepe, as his name is, overcome his prejudices. And it's a wonderful story, with a great role, not just for the child, but for the elderly man in the film, is another icon of French cinema, who I'll tell you about when we see the film. So I'll look forward to seeing you on the 30th. Oh, I see a hand up back there. Is that Sandra? Did you raise your hand, Lefkowitz? No? Okay. So if nobody else has anything, I'm glad you all enjoyed the film. I will look forward to seeing you on the 30th for the two of us, which like